Welcome. I'm Bill Wake. We're here this week summarizing our work on Twitch. We worked on a project called SortTables, which was one I developed a couple years ago. Kind of my first real thing doing SwiftUI, and kind of halfway through the project, and wanted to revive it and get it working under modern things and maybe explore whether the SwiftUI table could actually help us out some. So we'll get there. All right, so what did we do this week? Well, first thing was we just went through the mechanics of finding the old code, and I thought I had to put it under source control, but it already was, so okay, that's great. Then we took the latest compiler and we did some building with it just to make sure things built, and there were a few changes we made. After that, we wanted to update the libraries to the latest version. Well, one of them hasn't changed, the Swift spreadsheet. It looks like it's maybe 5 years old. And the other was Sqlite, and that had changed. So updating it was a bit of yak shaving. We updated Ruby and updated gems and updated pod and updated the library. But okay, we got there. Let's look at what SortTables does, and we'll see what behavior we're going to be retaining. So the key concept in this is that it sorts the table. So what it does is the first column is the primary key, secondary key, tertiary, and so on. And you can rearrange. If you press, you get a draggable thing. Okay, and I'll make that the first column, and I'll make instrument the second column. Okay, so what we've got is the instructors and what instrument they're working on for the class. So the class is playing with all thumbs, and it's a clavier class taught by Mozart, and you can see there's 6 students in that class. And then Beethoven's teaching fiddle, and he's got a number of students as well. And within there, Beethoven fiddle, then banana is the first one because it's the first alphabetically. Okay. Now this lets you do kind of quick switching. If I want to find out, this is more by instructors, but maybe I care about like who all's teaching the different instruments. Okay, I can see clavier is taught by Mozart, fiddle by Beethoven and Schumann, Clara Schumann, and so on. All right, but notice I probably don't care about all these other columns. Well, that's where the bar comes in. So there's a column called the bar, and it's always in this kind of reversed color. But this says anything to the right of the bar, don't bother showing. Just show the counts of it. Okay, so I can drag that column, or I can use these things to move it over for me. So I have 150 entries in the table total, and if I do this by instruments, I have 6 people teaching clavier for session 1, 28 for fiddle, and so on, or taking classes for them. All right, now if I move the bar over to the right one, that's instructor. So where there's 2, I can see that it's 19 for Beethoven and 9 for Clara Schumann and 25 for Bach and 20 for Medtner. Okay. But the idea for this was that I wanted to be able to kind of quickly produce interesting things. And so like this report, let me move instrument 1 out of the way. If this is the session 1, then I can tell each teacher how many students they have in their class, okay, without, writing spreadsheet cells or any of that. It's all kind of built in, but, I've got the summary to tell me that stuff. And that sort of speed of doing it is what I was after for this. Let me show another feature. Another feature of this is quick filtering. So you may have noticed this star, that means show everything. But if you click on one of these, double click on one of these, it only shows that value. And if you double click again, it restores it. So we know we have 2 teachers on fiddle, so let's do that one. Okay, so there are Beethoven and Clara Schumann, and only the fiddles are shown. So again, just kind of very quick interaction for this kind of analysis we're doing. Okay, and the other feature that we're working in there, and we'll come back to this one, but we have a way to open, this one opens a file, it's just a default file. There's a web page, there's a database, and there's the opportunity to configure a database. to do some mapping on the columns and rows. So we'll look at that one later because we did break that one out. Then we installed SwiftLint, so it's a style checker, and found about 1,000 errors. Most of them not terribly interesting, but for the sake of consistency with the kind of language standards and across my own apps, we fixed them. So things like putting a space before a colon in a declaration, or blank lines that, too many blank lines, or whatever the kind of things were. There were a few that were a little more interesting, but basically we got to this at the end of one session. I spent a couple extra hours offline and saved a few that looked at least a little interesting to work on in session 2, and we wrapped those up, and that was fine. It's much more consistent. The only error we're still getting is one I can't seem to get the system to suppress, but it's in that old Swift spreadsheet package. The language, the syntax has changed a little bit, and you get a warning on something, but I can live with that. All right, and then after we got that done, I went back to EGTest, which is a package I developed for parameterized testing in Swift, and we'd used that in the previous project, the Kaleidoscope, and along the way we had added usage of XCT assert equal, where you have doubles and you have a fuzz parameter or accuracy parameter. So we supported that in an EGTest now, and packaged that all up, sent it to the Swift package library, whatever that's called, and announced it in a couple places. So that's all set. Okay, so there's not much code to see on any of these, so it's kind of boring. All right, then we went to spiking the SwiftUI table. So SwiftUI in the last couple or 3 years introduced a table object that is not quite as fancy as the UIKit table, and I wanted to see if we could swap that in instead of this spreadsheet package that's clearly kind of getting a little long in the tooth. And the answer is no, but let's go look at the spike. Okay, so we wanted to do a spike on whether the SwiftUI table would be sufficient for what we do for our application. One of the things we have to do is sort, okay? And there's sort of a built-in approach on this. It doesn't quite fit what we do, but I think we can work around that if we need to. So we start, and we have these person objects with name, given name, family name, email, and then we put a little debugging information in. But the key thing for sorting is you have this variable sort order that's an array of comparators, and as you click them, this updates the order and the direction of them. Okay, so I'm going to select this and then click. I change the sort order from ascending to descending, all right, and then can change it back. And I notice I put some debugging code in, so I can see it's reversed, and then I put it back to forward. If I click family name, it's going to make that one sorted by alphabetical order ascending, and basically that was sort of the default order we had for it. But notice it changed the first column to family name and the second one to given name. So as you select these, they become the primary key in effect. All right, and then we can select email. Again, started out ascending, but we can reverse it. We can go back and put family name, then email, then given name, and so on. So the sorting is very easy to do that. You just create that variable, you pass in a binding to it, and in this case I did on change, and I printed out the sort order so I could see what the system thinks they are. Okay, now at one point we thought this was a bug because I hadn't realized that the new on change of, or newish, gave you old order and new order. I thought it gave us new order and something else, and so it looked like it was doing things backwards. But which it was not. It was my error, not Apple's. But we did notice that the way this worked of saying, the first time you select something, it doesn't change it. But then, it just moves it to the front with whatever value it had. And then, if you click it again, it changes the direction. and this notion of moving which one to the front and how do you change direction, all that wasn't really documented in the SwiftUI table documentation. So we filed a bug with a suggestion report, I guess you'd say, with Apple suggesting, hey, why don't you add a little more information in the documentation, but just something to explain how that ordering went. And then the other thing you get with this is you can rearrange the column order. Let's see, do I have that set up? Yes. Okay, so again, it's I've got some visibility or debug stuff in here to show me column customization, and the order is given name, email address, family name. So I moved email address forward. Now, unfortunately for us, this information is not directly returned by the table column customization. We can see it because it does put in the debug information, and it also has an encode method, and I suspect we could probably encode it into JSON and then extract out the things, but we're using internal information to do that, and so I wasn't too happy to do that. It seems like something you'd really want them to tell you. I mean, they've got the information right there. What columns are they using? I don't know what explicit is versus implicit, I guess, but at any rate, we have information to tell us these columns are in this order, but not exposed in a useful way. So that's kind of a strike against it. Reordering is fine, but with ours, we want to control the ordering. So if it reorders, we want to be able to detect that and then enforce some things about it, and in particular, change the sort order to match the column order, because that's the kind of heart of the metaphor for us. All right, and then we left off the week working on SQLite. The initial sort orders has support for a database. It's fallen into disrepair, basically. So I go to configure database. It took us a while to remember, or took me a while to remember, like, oh, wait, you've got these sitting here, these databases. But what there was this configuration, and it lets us add tables, but it's not doing it right now. So it sort of adds it, but it doesn't show it in the list, which is disappointing. And I can't change it, which is even more disappointing. Now, if it's in the list, I can change it. So I can say registration. Well, let's say person. Okay, has ID and name, and I can accept that. Then I also want to be able to do joins. So, let's add join. Well, I should be able to say person.id equals, well, let's go the other way. Class.instructor foreign key actually maps into the person table, so equals person.id. So the idea was you'd be able to specify the joins you wanted to do, so you could get a big table, like, we need a very flat table to do our work, and this gives it to you. But we aren't doing something right when we add tables, and I think same thing for joins. Oh no, we get a join. Okay, so yeah, it's something we add. And then this thing isn't flexible enough. It doesn't let you delete them, I don't think. I mean, maybe in here you can put a delete or somewhere else, but it's not, I don't think. It's not up to what I want for a user interface, in particular because it's buggy, but even still, it's a little clunky. Also, having to type this in, it'd be better to just say, like, here are the databases I can see, and which one do you want? So this is where we'll pick up next time. I'm out this coming week, so that next time we'll start the week of November 20th. That's Thanksgiving week here, so just the first 3 days, because Thanksgiving's on Thursday. So, but we'll start working on figuring out what's going on with these. We might. This part was written in SwiftUI, so I might try and switch things to the more modern app model stuff, but I haven't really looked at that. It's my kind of excuse to look at it, but I think we got to get it working and then figure out what to do from there. I wanted to prove that you could take a SQL database, let it build up queries that match SQL as far as sorting and filtering and all that stuff. And the SQLite implementation was enough to let me do that. So I was happy with that. All right. Well, thanks for joining. Like I said, we're going to be back November 20th. It's 2 to 4:30 Eastern Time, Eastern Standard Time, or 7 to 9:30 p.m. UTC. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.